the rich husband, and the condo will be mine. As a thank you gift, I'll introduce you to my ex." Alice leaned in close to me and whispered in my ear, "Plain Jane doesn't suit a rich husband or a mansion. Just get out, will you?" I had been holding my breath without realizing it, and my chest felt tight. I was breathing heavily through my shoulders. "Get out." Huh? My breathing was erratic, and I couldn't speak properly. Alice laughed loudly at that.
"Oh no."
"Jane, don't cry." "Jane, I'm sorry. But I've decided to live with Alice." As I was about to hyperventilate, Michael mercilessly handed me the completed divorce papers. I was betrayed by both my husband and my sister. Receiving them only made me feel worse, and I crouched down, clutching my stomach. Ha ha ha. I could painfully feel the stares of Alice and Michael. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Ha. I lifted my face, which had been downcast, and let out a huge burst of laughter. There's no way I would cry. The ones who will be crying and screaming are Alice and Michael. I am Jane Young, a housewife in my 40s. Recently, I got married for the second time. My husband's name is Michael. He's a man 2 years older than me. He was a tenant in the apartment I owned. While I was cleaning the apartment, he would say, "Thank you for your hard work." Gradually, we started making small talk and eventually started dating. "I really thought you were just a housewife working a cleaning part-time job. I'm also in my 40s. It's no wonder he thought so since I wasn't dressed fashionably, just tying my black hair back. I was really surprised when I found out you're the landlord." Michael was always busy working and investing as a hobby. By the time he realized it, he had missed his chance to marry. We hit it off because I also had a thing for investing. Naturally, we ended up getting married. Michael always praised anything to do with my investments, saying, "That's amazing." Not only that, but when I made a simple meal, he'd be thrilled, saying delicious, and if I massaged his shoulders, he'd look blissfully happy as if he was melting. He's older but has a childlike purity to him. I wasn't at an age where I wanted to wear a wedding dress for the second time. So, unfortunately for Michael, who was marrying for the first time, we didn't have a wedding ceremony. Instead, we moved into a high-rise condo unit that Michael wanted. Wow, what a view. Even though we're only on the 5th floor of the high-rise? Michael was excited, looking over the city. "It's so luxurious for just the two of us, how many times bigger than my old apartment." I never imagined that Michael's straightforward personality would change 180 degrees. The trigger was inviting Michael's colleague to our house. Wow, amazing. Michael's colleague, Jeff, stood frozen in the middle of the room, his mouth agape. "This is Michael's place?" "It's like a hotel. I've never stayed in such an amazing hotel before." Surprised? "It's really amazing, right?" Urged by a proud Michael, Jeff cautiously sat down on the leather sofa. "This is for you, my wife told me to bring it." Michael, handed a chocolate cake by Jeff, showed a troubled smile and said, "Oh? Thanks. This is like the $10 cake they sell near the service counter at supermarkets, right?" There was no need for him to say it in such a snide manner. Jeff shrank uncomfortably. "Thank you for the chocolate cake. I really love it." Trying to change the atmosphere, I cheerfully said this and offered Jeff coffee. "Oh, thank you." Jeff took a sip of coffee, relieved. Until now, Michael wouldn't even join us for drinks and for lunch. It was always cup noodles or discounted bento boxes. You never bought coffee at the coffee shop either. You were always so frugal. So I couldn't believe it when you suddenly moved into a high-rise condo after getting married. You're amazing. Well done. Well,
Yeah.
Michael puffed out his chest, lifting his chin. Who were those guys calling me a loser who couldn't get married? There's nobody at work who can mock me now, right? Sorry about that. Your wife must be happy. Michael and Jeff joked around. I was a bit concerned about Michael's attitude. But maybe this is just how men talk to each other. Jeff then spoke more softly, but your house is luxurious, but your wife is plain. Well, you win some, you lose some. I'm not superficial like you. It's normal for a 40-year-old me to marry a 40-year-old woman, right? Expecting a cute wife in her 20s is just a fantasy from drama. I couldn't believe my ears. They both seemed to be laughing without any ill intent. Right. This high-rise condo has a gym and bars. Not like the cheap pubs you guys go to. It's a really stylish bar. Should I treat you to a drink? With that, Michael and Jeff headed to the bar in the mansion. Michael was getting carried away in front of his colleague. Just for today. Just now. But from this day forward, Michael began to act arrogantly. You went to that cheap supermarket again, didn't you? We're supposed to be classy. It's embarrassing, so please stop. Checking my purchases and the receipts, Michael frowned unhappily. What I disliked the most was Michael's evening drinks. He always sat by the window, looking down while drinking. The cars look like toys. And the people are so tiny. They work in the lower world without realizing they're being looked down upon. Michael had completely changed. It felt like a distant memory when we used to buy discounted vegetables at a cheap supermarket and cook together. I was starting to feel uneasy about Michael. Then one day, when I came home, I saw unfamiliar high heels at the entrance. I swallowed nervously. Could it be that Michael brought another woman home? Listening carefully, I could hear laughter from a man and a woman coming from the living room. My palms were sweaty even though it wasn't hot. I tiptoed down the hallway like a thief. Peeking into the living room, a curly-haired woman noticed me and raised her hand. Jane. Welcome back. What? Sister? The tension I had been feeling instantly dissipated. The one drinking with Michael was my sister, Emily. I was relieved for a moment, but then I wondered why she was here. I had told our mother about my marriage, but I hadn't given her our new address. Emily must have heard about the marriage from our mother. But I never expected her to show up at our home. If you're already married, you should have told me. I'm Jane's sister, after all. Let me at least celebrate your marriage. Emily, already drunk, leaned on Michael's shoulder. It seems that Michael had told our mother our new address during our marriage introduction. I really didn't want to tell her. I had told Michael beforehand that my relationship with my family wasn't good. But it's natural to answer honestly when your spouse's mother asks where you're going to live. However, my mother's question, "Where will you live?" wasn't just small talk. She probably just wanted material to look down on me. She must have laughed behind my back, thinking the story about the high-rise condo was a big lie. Wow, I was surprised. I never thought you'd really live in a high-rise condo. It feels so grand. It's spacious like a mansion, even though it's a condo. It's completely different from our old family home. Well, yes. This is the quality of a high-rise condo. Nice, nice. Jane, you're amazing. I'm so jealous. While saying this, Emily kept touching Michael's arm and thigh excessively. Michael's face visibly brightened with her overt body touch. Jane, you've come a long way from being a hamburger wife. Michael, who had been grinning, suddenly tilted his head in confusion. Huh? Michael, didn't you know? Jane's ex-husband was a part-timer at a hamburger shop. Jane used to go there a lot. Their meeting was like, Not like high school students, right? A hamburger shop? I can't believe you managed to marry someone with such a high school job. Your ex-husband was like a freeloader, huh? Really? Our mother and I were so worried, we opposed the marriage. But she was like, I love him. I'm going to marry him, playing the tragic heroine. She registered their marriage without telling anyone and cut off contact. They laughed heartily, drinking beer. Being made fun of over my ex-husband Noah was unbearable. I wanted to stop them right away, but I couldn't move. And then, after 5 or 6 years of marriage, that husband suddenly passed away due to illness. To heaven. Poor Jane, really. You didn't listen to our advice and married some weird guy. So you got what you deserved. At that moment, I raised my right hand high. Oh my God. I came back to myself at Emily's scream. My palm was trembling above Emily's head. Scary. You were about to hit me, weren't you? Emily blinked slowly, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. Then, as if flipping a switch, she became weak and leaned on Michael's shoulder, appearing drained of all strength. I was so scared. Her whiny voice sent shivers down my spine. Jane. What were you about to do to a family member? I clenched my trembling hands into fists as Michael yelled at me. Sorry, but it was sister who. Shut up. Are you trying to make excuses after making your own sister cry? I thought you were kinder than this. I'm disappointed. Emily's sobbing face showed her white teeth in a grin. Her overly red lips definitely seemed to be smiling. Michael gently stroked her artificially curly hair, unaware that she was actually smiling, and tenderly embraced her. But she was speaking ill of Noah, who passed away. What? Do you still have feelings for your ex-husband? Michael refused to listen to me. It was the moment a complete rift formed between us as a couple. It's always been like this. My family looks down on me, making me the butt of their jokes. That's why I wanted to keep my distance. Emily, always the prettier one, was doted on by both our mother and our late father. I, on the other hand, was often told by my mother, "It's okay. You can get plastic surgery when you're older." While Emily enjoyed a glamorous life of fashion and dating, I devoted myself to my studies to earn my mother's praise by scoring perfect marks. However, once getting perfect scores became the norm, missing even a single point led to scolding. Jane is so diligent with her studies, such a smart little sister. I'm so proud. I even bragged to my friends that she's studying hard now for her future plastic surgery fees. Despite not being academically inclined, Emily often ridiculed me. Even now as an adult, am I still supposed to be laughed at by my family? Being unable to defend Noah without being allowed to retaliate, let alone being laughed at and blamed by Michael as well, was incredibly frustrating. A week passed since then, but our relationship remained strained. Michael enjoyed living in the high-rise condo. Yet he began coming home late, likely to avoid seeing me. He avoided our bedroom, retreating to a spare room with a weary demeanor. In this large house, we hardly felt each other's presence, as if the emotional distance between us was growing wider. Determined to break this pattern, I approached Michael the next day after he returned from work. Michael, it's cold today. Would you like to have hot pot together? Michael, who was about to head straight to his room, glanced at the dining table where a warm pot steamed invitingly with a gentle aroma of broth. Huh. His response was cold. Hot pot? I don't want to eat something so plebeian. If you want to appease me, you should at least serve caviar or foie gras. Disdainfully, Michael shrugged his shoulders, having never even tasted those delicacies. Then he sighed deeply after giving me a thorough look. Huh, you're not the one. My mistake. With those words, he disappeared into his room. My mistake. The meaning behind those words would soon become painfully clear. Welcome home. One day, I was greeted by Emily at the entrance. She was unusually cheerful, spreading smiles around. Behind her stood Michael, scratching his head and smirking. Emily and Michael seemed happy yet embarrassed. As if they had something important to say but hesitated to bring it up. What's going on? Were you drinking and bad-mouthing me and Noah again? No, that's just your persecution complex. As I proceeded to enter the room, Emily stopped me. Wait. Sorry, but could you not come into this house anymore? What? How do I put this right, Michael?
Yeah.
You tell her, Emily. Emily and Michael were awkward like a new couple. Well, you see, we fell in love. Huh? In front of Emily's childish fuss, I gave a deflated response. Emily is not a high school student. She's a woman in her 40s with laugh lines already showing. Somehow, I felt embarrassed. Jane, you still love your previous husband, right? I was hurt. So, it's only natural for my feelings to change towards Emily, right? Huh? I nodded, but couldn't comprehend. Jane, I'm really sorry. Her apology lacked any sincerity. Emily clasped her hands in front of her chest, pouted her lips, and tilted her head. Leaning close to me, she whispered in my ear. The rich husband and the condo will be mine. As a thank you gift, I'll introduce you to my ex. The intense smell was like a strong air freshener, giving me a headache. Her bright red lips barely touched my ear, causing goosebumps. It's okay. Relax. That ex of mine is also a part-timer. You like such losers, right? Plain Jane doesn't suit a rich husband or a condo. Just get out, will you? After blowing her fishy breath, Emily finally stepped back. I was completely frozen. Emily crossed her arms, looking smug. Get out, you say? I had been holding my breath without realizing it, making my chest hurt. I was gasping for air through my shoulders. Get out. Ha. My breathing was erratic, and I couldn't articulate my words properly. Emily laughed loudly at that.
Oh no.
Jane, don't cry. Poor Jane. Jane, I'm sorry. But I've decided to live with Emily. As I was about to hyperventilate, Michael mercilessly handed me the filled-out divorce papers. Receiving them made me feel even worse, and I crouched down, clutching my stomach. Ha. I could acutely feel the stares of Emily and Michael. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Ha. I lifted my face, which had been downcast, and released a huge burst of laughter. What have you been saying? Why should I be the one to leave? My sudden outburst of laughter must have seemed bizarre. Emily grimaced and took a step back. Because, you know, I own this house? I said, wiping the tears from the corner of my eyes. Emily frowned in confusion, and Michael gave a slight smile. Huh? Do you understand what being handed a divorce paper means? Michael and you are getting a divorce. Michael and I will live here, so the nuisance should disappear. It seemed my words were dismissed as the ramblings of someone out of her mind. Emily's presence already filled the house. Looking behind her, I saw a pair of crumpled tights discarded on the living room floor. Realizing there was no place for me anymore. The thought of clinging to a house saturated with Emily's scent seemed shameful. Maybe we should just move to another house? No way. I've grown to like this high-rise condo. Michael lured Emily with a confident smile, seemingly plotting something. But it was no longer my concern. Understood. I'll leave, so do as you please. Emily, grinning triumphantly, made her demand confidently. It's good you understand. Then, Michael and I will live in this high-rise condo. Don't come back complaining later. Sure. I wish you happiness. Then, I packed my belongings into a single Boston bag and left the room where I was supposed to have a happy married life with Michael. A few days later, returning from the convenience store, I bumped into Emily and Michael at the entrance of the condo. You're still lurking around the condo? Creepy. Just leave already. Oh, could it be you have nowhere to go and you're sleeping here at the entrance?
Aw.
That's so sad. Having a homeless person at the entrance of a luxury high-rise condo, give me a break. They pitted me based on their unfounded imagination. I ignored them and headed for the elevator. What? You want to pick up your stuff? No way. The room will get polluted if someone as drab and poor as Jane enters. We'll send it COD to you, so don't enter my house. Which park should we send it to? Or maybe a station? Emily and Michael followed me like fish trailing behind, as I quickened my pace. Just as I was about to press the elevator button, Michael frantically stopped me. Hey, Jane. That's the elevator for the upper floors. Are you out of your mind? Maybe the shock of being dumped by Michael made her senile? Right. Good riddance to a senile old person. I don't want to deal with caregiving. Ignoring them, I pressed the elevator button. Hey, stop messing around. It's rude to the celebrities living on the upper floors. As I entered the elevator, Emily and Michael exchanged shocked looks. They squeezed in just before the doors closed. Michael, experiencing the high-rise elevator for the first time, was as excited as if he were on an amusement park ride. The elevator stopped at the top floor. Hey, this is not good. Homeless people shouldn't come here. Let's not do this. We're going to get in trouble with real celebrities. I don't know you. Despite their attempts to hold me back, Emily and Michael curiously looked around. I continued to ignore them and opened the door to the room in front of me. You can't just enter someone else's place. Giving them a glance, I stepped into the room. Michael, flustered, reached for the door as it was about to close. Stepping into the top-floor apartment of the high-rise condo. Hey, Jane. What do we do? Should we go in too? After hesitating at the entrance, they cautiously made their way down the hallway. Wow. Entering the living room, Michael couldn't help but exclaim. The room, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, offered a panoramic view of the city. A stark contrast to the fifth floor. How? Sitting comfortably on the sofa, I finally met Emily and Michael's gaze. Why? Because this is my home. Emily and Michael's mouths hung open in shock, as if their jaws were about to drop. Since I was suddenly kicked out, I had no choice but to move to this top-floor room. Oh, and about those remaining belongings, you'll send them COD, right? Please send them to this room. The two seemed on the verge of screaming but could only open and close their mouths silently. What? Why? Because it's my house. How many more times do they need me to say that this is my house? I told you, everything is in my name. The room you're living in, and this room, they're all mine. What? Huh? Why? I wasn't told you owned the top floor too. I thought the best place you owned was that fifth floor room. Did you deceive me? Michael had lived in an apartment I owned until we got married. He had asked if I owned better properties and requested to live in the best one available. I didn't deceive you. The person who lived in this top floor room just moved out recently. You're kidding. The top floor? I'm on the 5th floor, and Jane's on the top. That's a lie. Don't mess with me. Jane, of all people. Michael's mouth twisted in frustration as he scratched his head furiously. Emily, are we okay with just the 5th floor? Living beneath Jane. Let's move to a higher condo than this one. Yes, let's move. Michael, let's not just find a condo where we can see the sky tree, but one from where we can look down on it. Holding hands, the two envisioned a grand future together.
Yeah.
So, Emily, do you own a higher condo than this one? Huh? No, of course not. That's too bad. Then, we'll just have to buy or rent one normally. Emily, I'm counting on you. Huh? Wait, what? What? Their earlier brightness vanished, replaced by puzzled expressions. Hey, I've been a bit confused since earlier. What do you mean by Jane owning houses? Is this really Jane's house? Emily asked with a strained smile.
Yeah.
Well.
Ha!
The nerve of Jane. You studied hard just to save up for plastic surgery, but instead, you bought a high-rise condo without spending on surgery? No, that's not it.
Ah.
I get it. It's a loan, right? With a loan, you can buy anything expensive, right? So that's the trick. Don't scare me like that. Emily convinced herself, crossing her arms and nodding. But you can't beat Michael, right? He owns a couple of rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floors of this high-rise. And lots of other lands and apartments. You're in a different league from Jane. Michael awkwardly kept silent, avoiding my gaze. But that too belongs to me. Because this entire high-rise condo is mine. What? But, Michael said it was his. Emily's pleading gaze turned to Michael, expecting the confident Michael she knew. But the real Michael looked pale and distressed. Michael, Jane's lying, right? No, well, it's ours, kind of. Michael mumbled ambiguously, so I clarified for them. It seems Michael bragged about properties in my name as if they were his own. What a pathetic man. No, that's a lie. The one who lied was Michael. Emily collapsed on the spot from the shock. Jane, of all people. This can't be true. Michael, looking uncomfortable, offered a strained apology with a weird smile. Sorry. It was a direct apology, but it couldn't possibly reach the dazed Emily. Unable to bear the oppressive atmosphere, Michael started to laugh awkwardly. I'm sorry. I don't own anything. But my feelings for Emily are real. I'll always support Emily by her side. Michael. Emily's cheeks turned slightly red. Love over money? No way that could be true. So, Emily, how much do you own? Own what? You know, like land or condos. Huh? I don't own anything like that. What? Why not? Emily and Michael exchanged confused and pathetic looks, their eyebrows moving up and down. Emily was more loved by our parents than Jane. So it's only natural she'd be favored, right? What happened to the condos you inherited from our father? Inheritance? What are you talking about? Did you somehow lose all the condos you inherited? What are you even saying? Emily shouted, and finally, the two fell silent. They stared at each other, making funny faces, opening their eyes wide, frowning, and baring their teeth as if in a grimace contest. Haha. I lost this staring contest. Michael, you seem to have misunderstood. It's true I own many condos and lands because I inherited them. But not because I studied hard. You can't buy 1 or 2 high-rises just by studying hard. However, it wasn't from my father that I inherited. Emily and Michael swallowed hard at my clarification. I inherited it from Noah. For a moment, Emily looked stunned, but then she burst into laughter. Noah, the guy from the hamburger place? Yes, but not a part-time worker. I had explained to my family when I decided to marry Noah. It was true we met at a hamburger shop, but Noah wasn't a part-timer there. He owned the land the shop was on. It was baffling how anyone could twist that into him being a part-timer. No matter how much I corrected them, I was laughed off with.
Yeah.
A grown man working part-time. Noah came from a long line of landowners and was very wealthy. I explained simply, and Emily's eyes nearly popped out. He was wealthy enough to live a life of leisure without working a day in his life. In reality, Noah was diligent about his work. And neither of us abandoned our jobs after marrying. Though we could live without working, we chose not to, and thus, the wealth was preserved. Furthermore, I learned about investing and nearly doubled the wealth I inherited from Noah. Michael's lips trembled minutely. Jane did say she inherited it, but why from an ex-husband? I thought it was her father's fortune. Normally, inheritance comes from parents. That's why I thought Emily, being more loved, would have a larger fortune. If they were both wealthy, choosing the more attractive Emily over plain Jane would be natural. You deceived me. Michael lamented weakly. Of course, I had mentioned inheriting from my late husband. Why do those who jump to conclusions always have the wildest misconceptions? I didn't know about this. You never told me. I hadn't bragged about being wealthy in a vulgar manner. But I had repeatedly asserted that Noah was not a part-timer. It was just that Emily's ears and brain chose to shut out the truth. Jane, of all people, wealthy? Jane, of all people, owning a high-rise? Unacceptable. It's clear that blunt truths are the only things that get through to people like her. Sorry for owning real estate worth $19 million, being supposedly inferior to Emily. And living comfortably above your head. Emily, for some reason, covered her head with both hands and collapsed to the floor. No words came out, but tears of frustration overflowed. I walked over to the window and looked outside. Michael, want to see the view? It's quite different from the 5th floor. You'll probably never see a view like this again in your life, so why not take a look? Staggering over, Michael then wrapped his arm around my shoulder. I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I just got carried away because Emily seemed to have a lot of money. Think about it. Do you really think I'd like someone flashy like Emily? Gross. Mesmerized by the expansive view from the large window, Michael was lost in the moment. People look like toys. No, they're just trash. I gently placed my hand over Michael's on my shoulder. He then gripped my hand and smiled softly. Jane, I love you. Michael, I don't love you. What? I shook off his hand violently. A husband who abandons his newlywed wife to cheat is exactly what you'd call trash. By the way, the divorce papers you shoved in my face that day have already been filed. Have you enjoyed the view from the top? It's time for trash to return to where it belongs. With that said, Michael, still maintaining his most handsome pose, froze solid. Afterwards, Emily and Michael continued to live on the 5th floor of the high-rise. Given Michael's disdain for Emily, it's obvious they weren't living happily ever after. They simply refused to leave, each claiming, I'm staying here. One day, I saw them clearly lying in wait at the entrance of the condo. As soon as they noticed me, they stumbled over themselves to approach. Jane. Finally, we've found you. Hey, what's the meaning of this? I didn't need to look at the paper they were showing me to know what it was about. What do you mean? It's a bill for rent. It's written in Japanese, so you should be able to understand it. Why? You're trying to take money from us now? Of course. Why would you think you can live here for free? As I responded calmly, Emily came closer. You're so cold. We're family, right? You can kick out this trash man, but as your family, I should have the right to live here for free. You don't. Have you forgotten what you did? Stealing a sister's husband and breaking up her family, and you talk about family? I don't have a family. Emily weakly muttered, Jane. I was jealous of you, Jane, because you seemed so happy. Honestly, I'm in a lot of trouble. Emily burst into tears, her voice breaking as she explained her dire situation. My ex-boyfriend, despite being a part-timer, spent a lot, so I asked him how. Did you know? If you use revolving credit, you can spend $1,000 one month and only have to pay back $100 the next. It sounds like a good deal, right? But Emily sniffled regretfully. Before I knew it, I was buying things for him too, and when we reached the credit limit, he dumped me. Isn't that sad? I have no money, so let me stay in the high-rise. She was planning to introduce that ex-boyfriend to me. So, you were dumped. But it's okay. You still have Michael, right? Maybe your ex and Michael are similar. Both are equally worthless. I heard Michael was into investing, but he never shared any details with me. Just kept asking about my investments. No wonder he couldn't say anything. Betting on horse races and blowing most of his salary on them. Being wealthy doesn't necessarily mean being flashy. Noah and I didn't waste money and lived very modestly. I thought Michael was the same before we married. I mistook him for a humble and kind person because he didn't talk much about himself. When our relationship started to deteriorate, finding an overflowing pocket of betting tickets nearly made me faint. Enjoy your life with Michael, whom you stole from me. Oh, and don't forget, the rent is due tomorrow. Make sure to pay it on time. That's impossible. If it's impossible, then please leave. Despite my reasonable response, Emily cried loudly, but we're family. And Michael clung to my legs, screaming, I love Jane. This high-rise condo felt more like a daycare than a luxury building. It wasn't my job to discipline these toddlers. Eventually, Emily and Michael couldn't stay in the high-rise and had to leave. I moved as well, so I no longer had to worry about being ambushed by them. The top floor of the high-rise was lovely, but it just didn't feel like me. What a great view today. I leaned out from the balcony of my second-floor home. Before me stretched an endless sea. My life in the city felt like being swallowed by a sea of dark buildings. Moving away from the city, I changed both my residence and job. Starting a new life with a fresh mindset. Neighbors share their vegetables and seafood with me. I have congenial colleagues at work. Life doesn't necessarily require parents, siblings, or a spouse. It's enough to spend time with people you like. Even without a family, I'm perfectly happy on my own. Come to think of it, Noah also loved the sea. I live a carefree life by myself. But in my heart, Noah's smiling face is always there. I realized that even though I'm alone, I'm not lonely.